the Latina Leadership Podcast, the podcast made for Latinas by Latinas, with Anjelica Cazares, Carolina Arenas, Diana Ruby, Jacqueline Villagomez, and Sonia Ramirez. Get comfortable, amiga, and enjoy the conversations.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Latina Leadership Podcast. My name is Anjelica Cazares, and I am your host for today. On today's episode, we have Dr. Laura Murillo. For those who don't know, Dr. Laura Murillo runs and has been running a very successful Hispanic Chamber of Houston here, obviously in Houston, Texas. Dr. Murillo, first of all, thank you. This has been a long time. We've been working on it, trying to get you into just having a conversation to the audience, to the members.
Thank you. Appreciate you all doing this. It's so important that we have conversations with other Latinas and try to encourage and motivate, inspire as well.
I've been a fan of your journey for quite some time now. I've been a huge advocate of what you do here.
Thank you.
Every time I go anywhere in the nation, I start talking to them about what it is that you do here in Houston. Not only are you kind of the person who has all the tentacles moving around the Chamber of Commerce, but how has it grown since you've been a part of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce here in Houston?
Well, first of all, I've done nothing on my own. I rely on a great staff, phenomenal board members, volunteer sponsors, and others. So that's the first thing is to, as I talk about in my book, people. Mm-hmm. It's about the people, surrounding yourself with the right people. I've been here now, fortunately, 15 years. Next year, God willing, will be my 16th year. Mm-hmm. I served on the board before I became president and CEO during the time that the Chamber was facing some challenges and some decision-making as to what was next, whether we would fold into another chamber perhaps, close the doors, or find a way to really be, as we like to say, the leader of Houston's new majority. And so we've done so, again, through a lot of hard work. We have been able to increase membership significantly, revenues. We have put programming together, everything from a data summit, leadership conference, a CEO breakfast, the largest business luncheon and expo in Houston with over 2,000 people, Hispanic or not, a foundation for our young leaders. I've also created a television and radio program, and we have an audience reach of over 3 million. It's on 6 Odyssey, which is formerly CBS Radio, and on KHOU 11, CBS, Univision Radio and Television with an audience reach over 3 million, where we highlight the great work of people in Houston, Hispanic or not. But we want to make sure those stories are told. So, in a nutshell, it has been an amazing ride. A lot of hard work, a lot of persistence, a lot of passion, many no's, many ups, many downs. But at the end of the day, we believe that we are here because we're making a difference, especially when it comes to business, to the economy, to representation at all levels, including corporate America, corporate boards. And as we look at data, we know that women and Latinos represent less than 2% of the people serving on compensated corporate boards nationally and locally. And so every day we're finding a reason to advocate, to promote, and to tell the great stories of our entrepreneurs.
2 questions, because you said something from the very beginning that I wanted to ask you was, why did you take on the challenge of putting yourself in the position that it could have completely flopped?
I consider myself an entrepreneur. I also consider myself someone who likes to build. And oftentimes, the more challenging it is, the more exciting it is for me. And I believed that while I was serving on the board, I saw the chamber not for what it was, but what it could be. And I went back to mentors and I said, I'm thinking about this. I've been asked to apply for the position as president and CEO, but a lot of challenges, including, no money, a lot of governance issues. The list went on and on. And half of the people said, do not do it. You've got a great position. You've worked so hard. You've earned your doctorate. You're in the Texas Medical Center as the highest ranking Latina at Memorial Hermann at the time, reporting to the CEO on the executive committee with the CEO. And I thought, well, it's not because I have to, but it was more I'd like to, I want to, and I know that if we get the right people, if we exercise persistence and passion, I believe we can do this. And I knew that it started with people. And so I went around and found people that trusted me, that I'd work with. And one of the first things we did was 2 months after I took the position, I learned that we were being asked to leave our offices, which I was embracing. I was like, well, that's okay. We'll find a new home. And we did. I went to several people, and Paul Murphy stepped up, and he agreed. And we've been in this building now over 15 years, and I was able to negotiate a very good deal for this chamber. And 2 years later, more space and conference space, etc. And I just went around Houston for the first year, really reconnecting, apologizing, doing whatever we needed to do to start a clean slate, and promised to move forward. Also promising that we were here to support the business community, entrepreneurs, and that we were going to be true to our sponsors and deliver for them, because I'd been on the other side. I understood what it was to be in corporate America. I also understand what it is to be an entrepreneur. My parents, owned in our family a restaurant where I worked from the time I was 10 until I graduated from college. So I get both sides of the fence for sure.
Yeah. So, okay, I understand you get both sides of the fence. So the other thing that I wanted to ask you was, when we talk about corporate America, because you're there, you've been on both sides, you deal with the entrepreneurs, you deal with the corporate space. Not a lot of Latinas, or not even a lot of Latinos, know that there's actually compensated board positions. There's you can get paid to be on the board, to tell sort of the organization how to run, how to do better, when you were working as a waitress, as a hostess at your parents' restaurant, when you started learning all of this, when you started getting into this, how was it surprising to you that you would get paid for your opinion? Was it surprising to you that you had a possibility to do the most, or were your parents just were you blessed that your parents just told you like you can do the most?
So a few things. Number one, I grew up in the East End, right? Avenue O in Magnolia, the youngest of 9. My parents had a second grade education. They came here as immigrants. And what I knew was hard work. From my dad, from my mother. I understood compassion, helping and serving others. So that's what I grew up with. This world that I am in today, this international world, is serving on 2 compensated corporate boards where you are correct. I give an opinion, I listen, I advocate. It's a very different role from serving the nonprofit world.
Yeah.
And as a little girl, I remember the one thing I knew I wanted to do was that I wanted to help people. I didn't know what that would manifest itself into being, but I loved helping people. The second thing I knew I loved was speaking and television and interviews and all of that.
You're comfortable there.
Yes, and so my degrees are in communication, administration supervision, etc. My doctorate is on statistical analysis of philanthropy and so on and so forth. But my father would always tell me that I was very good at speaking and that I was very persuasive. And so that has led me where I am today. I work very hard. I try to get a team around me that understands that it's more than a job. It's about really representing this community locally, nationally, at the state level, and internationally. And so I think in my heart, sure, I had big dreams. The truth is, I think my biggest dream was to be a vice president of something somewhere. I just thought that was so fancy and so important. And I didn't want to be president because it was just like, okay, that's maybe too much responsibility. But at the end of the day, things work out sometimes the way we plan, and other times the way plans are for us. And my goal obviously was not big enough. I never became a vice president. I became a president. I am a founding president and CEO. I am a founding executive producer and host, not of one television program, not of 2, 6 radio stations, 4 television stations. And it's all been done because I was focused. I understood there was a need for it. I worked hard. I asked questions. I aligned myself with people who could help open those doors and delivered. And for the next year, it will be 15 years that I have been on the air at CBS KHOU 11. No one in Houston has done that.
For that long?
That is not an employee of KHOU 11. And to be on 6 radio stations, on the top stations in Houston, delivering our message, and not just Latinos, but of Houstonians, of CEOs, of entrepreneurs, to let people know it's possible. And as a young little girl from the East End, to have the opportunity to sit before billionaires and millionaires and people from all over the world to say, Houston is the place to do business. Houston is the place where entrepreneurs can do anything that they want. And to be able to help people realize those dreams, for me, is a blessing and a privilege, something I take very seriously, and that I am obsessed with. I love it, and I can't get enough of it. And to be able to capture some of that story in my book during COVID has really allowed me to reflect that I've been really blessed to do so many things despite challenges and the many life's hiccups, to overcome it, and to, again, I go back, surround myself with people who believed in me and focus on that and work toward that.
Okay. I love everything that you just said at this very moment. I think one of the things that I need to tell you that whether people accept it or not, you have verbally have helped those directly or indirectly. It has made a huge economic impact, not only on Houston, but because we are the minority majority, a huge impact on the Hispanic community over and over and over, however people want to look at it. It just has, because those dollars could have gone funding somewhere else. That money could have gone to different places.
Sure.
That money was going to be there with those companies, with those corporate people. It was going to be there, but it funneled through here first.
Yeah.
So, I want to talk about lo que vine entonces, Dr. Murillo, your book. What inspired you to write a book? Did you always want to write a book? And why did you pick the stories that you put in the book?
So it goes back to being a little girl, and I like to play interesting games as a child. So I would pretend I was sitting at a desk and I would sign my name, and I would flip the pages, and I was signing contracts, and I'd flip the pages, and I was signing my name. I don't know, maybe I was preparing for signing my book, but I was signing my name, and I was helping people. It was always like, yes, how can I help you? Oh, sure, we'll take care of that. And I'd get also magazines, and I'd cut them out, and I'd put pictures together, and so I would sit at the front of the house with the neighbor who was about 90 years old. She was very wise. And I'd sit and I'd be, 8, 9 years old, sitting with my 90-year-old neighbor and having adult conversations, while the block was engaged in a baseball game, kickball, and I was in my fancy little dress, and I was sitting there with my book, telling this 90-year-old I was reading a book. My point is, I would stop for a second because the kids would say, Laura, come and play, kick the ball. And I'd say, okay, Miss Robinson, I'll be right back. I'm going to go kick the ball, but I'll be right back. So I would go and kick the ball and miss the ball and kick it and run and whatnot. And as soon as I was done, I'd be like, okay, guys, I'm going back. And they'd be like, okay, like she's out. It was just an understanding amongst the local block of kids. But I always found that people who were older were very wise, and that I could learn from it. And that, again, it just reinforced that, where is this going? Helping people. So the book, probably about 15, maybe even 20 years ago, people just, as I would go out and deliver speeches all over the world, oh, you need to write a book. Do you have a book? I was like, no. Oh, I really loved your speech. Those are great stories. And just people I knew started saying, oh, that's really, wow, you need to make sure that and you keep hearing this, right? And you keep hearing this. And so what I started doing, for sure, about 15 years ago, I just write a little note to myself, something that I thought, something that occurred, all of these things. And I kept old school manila folder, right, like an accordion folder, and I just drop in my little notes, and it just kept getting larger and larger, and so many great things and not so great. And then I started getting phone calls by publishers and others, and I wasn't ready or just didn't feel right. But then COVID happened, and it changed everything for all of us. And the call came again, and this team just felt right. And I didn't know how long COVID was going to happen, but I thought surely 10 months, the most, based on the news, we'll be back at it, right? And they said, well, we'll need 2 years to execute this book. I said, well, you got 10 months. And they said, well, no, you have 10 months. And if you can do all of the things, then we can make it happen. And so I pressured myself by booking the top floor Tillman Fertitta's private club at the Post Oak near the Galleria, and paid my deposit so that I could have a book launch on September 29th. And my publisher says, so you intend on having a copy of your book by then? Yes. Well, whatever we need to do, we shall do.
The money's invested.
I said, because when else would I have evenings and weekends where we weren't at multiple events? And we got at it, and I pulled out that accordion folder, and I looked at all my notes and kind of categorized. And I was at the end, like, what is this book? And it's really a journey, as I like to say in my book, of people, passion, and persistence.
People, passion, and persistence.
And what went well and what didn't, and people who were my champions. But the underlying thing was that I'm a product of a lot of people that were rooting for me, and I'm also a product of a lot of people that said, you can't do that. And I think we need both of those motivators. And so I did. I'd worked on Zoom 7 days a week like everybody else, trying to just make sure the chamber and people were taken care of. And then I started writing and started putting my pictures together, and they sent me a program on how to help them draft my cover, and I didn't know how to, I wasn't technical like that. And versus beat my head, I was just like, I got a sheet of paper, Juan, and I got 2-3 markers, and I drew a little stick figure of me, and I put me to the left, I put me to the right, I wrote the words, I saved space for some kind of a sticker, because I thought, well, maybe if it's successful, you need to leave room for a sticker. And I knew I wanted people, passion, persistent in there. But the other thing that kept coming up was this whole diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yet I needed to speak on that topic. Bottom line is, God was good. He made sure everything happened. All the people I needed in my life to make this happen did. And I want to give you a statistic. 90% of published authors in this country are white. I did not know that until I got into the book world. 90%. And there's this whole society, Amazon, and how all of this stuff works, et cetera, et cetera. Less than 2% of published authors are Hispanic in this country. So our stories need to be told. And the publisher said, your book is going to be a #1 international bestseller. And I said, well, please don't put that pressure on me. I said, I don't know that. You don't know that. They said, we know. It is. So much so that they said, we're going to run your first copies for your big book launch, and we're going to put the seal on it. And I doubted it, and I said, well, I hear you. I appreciate the confidence. Can we just print stickers? And the night before the event, if it's hit that, we can put the stickers on the copy. And then after that, you know, if it's good, all the books will print with the sticker, you know, included. So some of my dearest friends have the real best first copies where it's a sticker on the book. And as I was sitting there during the launch, they call you and they say, okay, this time your book's going to hit, and you know, you just got to sell, because you're going to start seeing where it's landing. And I still remember this moment when they contacted me and said, okay, your book has officially, you know, hit, you know, these lists, and you've outperformed Elon Musk, and you've outperformed Anderson Cooper, and your book has outperformed the Harvard Way, Toyota Way, the CEO of PepsiCo. And I said, are you sure? And they said, we're sure. And they said, you hit #1 in business, you hit #1 in leadership, you hit #1 in management. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what is going on? Mm-hmm. Bottom line is, by the time it was all said and done, number one in 3 countries, the U.S., Australia, and Canada. Number one in about 19 categories. Mm-hmm. And since then, I just continue to, on my time, on weekends and vacation days, I travel the world. Yeah. And I talk about a lot of different topics, motivating people, talking to CEOs to help them understand that these diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are not social programs. They're business imperatives. And I get to say that in a very gracious way. But again, at the end of the day, the book has allowed me to have this platform that is mm-hmm. much larger than Houston. Mm-hmm. In English or Spanish, the mayor of Guadalajara welcomed me mm-hmm. on a tour of the book at the world's book fair, mm-hmm. the capital of the world's book fair. Mm-hmm. And as a daughter of immigrants, to be in the Palacio in Guadalajara with the mayor of Guadalajara on the steps outside of the balcony where the grito is delivered was surreal. Uh-huh. And what a privilege. And hopefully a motivator to our community. It doesn't matter where you start, it's where you end up, so long as you remember those who came before you and those who are following you.
I was at one of your book readings. You read an excerpt, and it was the story about you and your mom mm-hmm. at Gough Gate Mall.
Yes.
And I truly am grateful to hear those stories, because mm-hmm. we're so big within each other's worlds, but we're so minute within the space. Mm-hmm. Ni de aquí, ni de allá. Like, we don't, oh my God, we have to make space for ourselves, mm-hmm. For people who are showing up with the education from like South and Central America, and then we're still trying to educate ourselves here, still trying to make room for others, still trying to be vigilant, still trying to be, accepting, still trying to still, but still trying to honor ourselves and our family. Mm-hmm. That's a hard place.
It is, but I think like anything, if you make the decision to do that, uh-huh. and you make the right choices, that you will. If it's important to you, it's like children. I have 2 daughters who are now 21 and 24. And the most important thing that I will have ever accomplished is raising 2 confident, independent, mm-hmm. smart young women. And they were my priority. Mm-hmm. And you see all of the successes in other ways, right? The true success is raising them so that they can live their lives. And the youngest one is 21. She's a senior at Georgetown University. She's maintaining straight A's. Mm-hmm. She's a marathon runner. She's an eloquent writer, speaker, and at 21 works at the White House for the Vice President of mm-hmm. the United States, mm-hmm. and has traveled on Air Force Two as an advanced associate and press lead at 21 years old. At 16, she became the youngest congressional intern and lived in Washington, D.C. on her own for 6 weeks mm-hmm. as she worked, there in D.C. The eldest is 24 and graduated from Columbia University in Ivy League, and she's an astrophysics researcher, mechanical engineer, works for an artificial intelligence company mm-hmm. that does work for Google, Amazon, and lots of very big corporations, and is currently preparing to apply to graduate school to earn a master's and PhD. Mm-hmm. Both of them graduated from St. John's in River Oaks, which is on the list this year as the #1 private school in Texas. Uh-huh. And granddaughters, again, mm-hmm. to 2 Mexican immigrants who came here with the hope and a prayer that their daughter would do better and that every generation would be better. And so they have exceeded and have lived up to those expectations and more.
Yeah. Not only that, they're amazing people.
Yes,
they're great people. The book does an amazing job of honoring the history of Mexican Americans, Hispanics who have immigrated here, and also a very much royalty to your family, in essence. So, lastly, to finish this off, any parting words to those who want to step into corporate, who are coming back into corporate, or entrepreneurs?
So I think one must focus and ask yourself, what is my goal? I think you start there. If you know what your goal is, if it's to help people, it's very simple. Help people. How you do that, you can define. And you might not be at this big corporation. You might be an individual that's out there volunteering, and you know what? That's important too. So set your goals.
Okay.
What is important to you? And what are the steps you need to get there? If you want to be in corporate America and you want to roll there, then you've got to look the part. You've got to get the education. You have to have people to help you understand the unspoken, unwritten rules. But it's one step at a time. None of this is done overnight, but you have to have a plan. Entrepreneurs, same thing. What is your goal? What do you want to do? What will you define as successful? Is it, I just have enough money that I don't have to, look the part in the corporate world. I can have a flexible schedule so I can take care of my children. What does that look like for you? Write it down. Decide what success looks like for you in whatever you are doing. And then just take steps toward that.
Okay.
And understand, it's not that one step. It's the culmination of many steps. And that's what this book is. It's many steps. None of this was done overnight.
Yeah.
It's many steps. So take that first one, is what I would say to entrepreneurs, anyone interested in corporate America. Take that first step.
Nice. Okay. I usually ask this, and I didn't want to ask this to you, Dr. Murillo, porque this is like an oxymoron for me, right? Usually I ask those who I interview on this podcast is, do you consider yourself a leader? I consider you a leader. I think everybody considers, but I'm going to twist it just a little bit.
Okay.
What does it take to be a great or a good leader, or a leader within itself?
Well, in order for one to lead, people must follow.
Yeah.
So it's also important that leaders understand that sometimes they must follow as well. So it's not just being a leader. It's knowing when to lead, knowing when to follow as a leader, and more importantly, empowering others to become leaders. For me, I can say that I am a leader because I have actively, strategically, purposely fostered leadership in others through the establishment of the Emerging Leaders Program, people who have worked here, people I have known, to say there's enough room for many leaders, all kinds of leaders in many sectors. Please, we need you. And so to me, if anyone would say, well, is she a leader? Or if you're asking me, I'd say yes, because I've helped train, I have helped encourage others to become leaders. And I think at the end of the day, the book is also a roadmap for leadership.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. Thank you. Thank you. I think you've done a very great job of leading.
Thank you.
I didn't consider following. Great leaders also know how to follow and know when to stop.
That's right.
And let somebody else lead.
That's right.
Thank you.
Lead in life.
Lead. What was it earlier? It was people, passion, and persistence.
People, passion, persistence. That's right. And so thank you for the opportunity to visit with you, and hope that we can encourage people
absolutely
to be their best selves and to lead in life, as my book says.
Yes, well, we'll do our best. But thank you, Dr. Murillo, for coming on today and having a great conversation with me.
Gracias. You got it. Thank you so much.
What did you think of the conversation? If you enjoyed what you heard, let us know in the comments. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you for listening to the Latina Leadership Podcast, and we will see you next time.